What's going on, boxing fans? Julian Williams here with The Distance. Got a video for you guys. This one's going to be a prediction for this James Kirkland versus Alfredo Angulo bout that takes place on November the 5th. Puts together two contenders, James Kirkland and Alfredo Angulo. So what you have in this fight is you have two young fighters that are very offensively dependent. They both come forward. They both don't know how to take a step back. This is actually going to be a fight. From the looks of things on paper. Both of them. I'm going to start off with James Kirkland. James Kirkland is a fighter. He stands straight up. He's a southpaw. He can throw a very hard southpaw jab. Use his jab to set up combinations, and he throws hard combinations. James Kirkland's punches are not intended for lasting effect. His punches are intended for an instant effect. So, in this fight against Angulo, since his punches are for an instant effect, he really doesn't want to go for the knockout early in this one. Even though, on the other side, Alfredo Angulo, his punches are intended for an accumulative effect to where he'll throw punches, but from time to time, they will have an instant effect, but they're not intended for the instant effect. He's looking for that late knockout, that late stoppage. So with James Kirkland in this fight actually wants to box in this one, or make an attempt to. He is a bit on the flat-footed side. He is flat-footed, but this is a fight to where he wants to box with Angulo. He wants to use his jab. If you look at the fight between Kermit Cintron and Alfredo Angulo, which was like May 30 of 2009, what happened was Angulo was walking forward, and he was walking straight into Cintron's jab, and Cintron is a bit taller and has a longer reach, and it was a bigger ring. I believe it was a 24-foot ring. So with it being a bigger ring, it did benefit for Kermit Cintron. What he did was he stood on the outside, he used his jab. He moved around the ring. Every time Angulo got close, he would take a quick step to the left, and when Angulo was walking in, he hit him with the jab. And when Angulo would get inside, he would outfight him inside by shortening up his punches inside, and then moving right back out so Angulo didn't land on him. And Kirkland is not that kind of fighter. Kirkland pretty much likes to throw punches. He likes to throw combinations. But he does stand there and admire his work. So in this specific fight against Angulo, Kirkland doesn't want to admire his work in this fight. What Kirkland wants to do is Kirkland wants to throw combinations, and he wants to kind of move around the ring, make Angulo walk up to him. But he wants to kind of sidestep, and Kirkland's not the kind of fighter to sidestep unless he has to. He's the kind of fighter that comes forward and chases you around the ring. But James Kirkland wants to sidestep a whole lot in this fight, so that Angulo tries to get himself in position offensively after being defensive. So pretty much what James Kirkland wants to do is he does want to. I don't think this is a volume punch fight for him, but I think he wants to I think he wants to throw punches, and I think he wants to throw punches. I think he wants to, and even if they don't land, I just think he needs to throw punches, just throw combinations, and and just move. Move right after he throws combinations, because he is a fighter that admires his work. So, and also I think that he's going to approach this fight in a different way, because Ashita was a fighter that he was like Kirkland was walking forward. Ashita was walking forward, towards him, and he was throwing back. So, just in this fight, he doesn't want to exchange with Angulo. This is one of those fights to where he hits and not be hit. He wants, like I said, hit him, move around the ring so that he doesn't touch him. So, also, on the other side you got Alfredo Angulo. Alfredo Angulo is a pressure fighter. Pretty much with him, he throws, as I mentioned, he throws punches for an effect later in the fight. He does go to the body. He goes to the body quite a bit. But also, he goes up top. He goes up top, he's more of a headhunter than he goes to the body. James Kirkland, I can tell you this: James Kirkland does not tuck his chin. That's probably the reason that he lost to Ashita. He doesn't tuck his chin. He's staying straight up, and his chin is like right, straight up in the air, leaving it just open to where he can be hit. And he's always been that way. Kirkland has always stood straight up and walks forward and throws punches. And when you walk up and you swarm a fighter, you're really not thinking about defense because Kirkland doesn't really move his head. So in this fight, this fight could play in to Angulo's style. Angulo could come forward and put together combinations coming forward, cut off the ring. And against Kirkland, I think it's going to be a little bit easier to cut off the ring when Angulo figures him out, when Angulo, kind of tastes his power. And if Angulo does respect his power, I think that Angulo will probably go for the knockout late. But I think this is a fight to where Angulo wants it to be on the inside. Angulo isn't jab dependent at all. He's not jab dependent at all, but he uses the jab quite well, whenever he's on the outside and not knowing what he's going to do next. So Angulo pretty much in this fight has to use the jab, get inside, and he wants to pretty much make this an inside fight for Kirkland. Kirkland's the type of fighter that needs room to fight, but if Kirkland's on the inside, I think Kirkland widen, his punches do come wide. So I think that an inside fight benefits Alfredo Angulo. An inside fight to where he's throwing, punches to the body, he's throwing punches up top, and and pretty much just cutting off the ring. That's what Angulo wants. He wants, he does, and also if he has to chase Kirkland, Angulo is the type of fighter that will box coming forward. He'll box coming forward. He'll throw his jab. He'll throw punches, towards the body, to slow Kirkland down, because Kirkland does slow down later in fights. And so pretty much who I think is going to win this fight, as jumbled as his prediction was, or as this video is, I'm going to go with Alfredo Angulo in this one. Alfredo Angulo probably by a late knockout. I'm going to go with Angulo by knockout due to the fact that James Kirkland does, it's like this, with James Kirkland likes the instant effect on his punches. He likes the instant effect. And with fighters that like the instant effect, they don't think about, it's like one of those things where you're thinking about now but not in the long run. And Alfredo Angulo in fights is thinking about the long run. And I'm sure that this is not going to be a big ring. I don't think it's going to be like that 24-foot wide ring like Angulo had against Centron, to where he had to step in and continue to move and set his feet and try to walk Centron down. So I don't think it's going to be that big of a ring just because you have two fighters that like to stand and trade. So I don't think it's going to be that. I just don't think it's going to be a big ring. I just think that we have a possible candidate for fight of the year between Angulo and Kirkland. And I think that Angulo should probably win this fight, just because there are some flaws in James Kirkland. He does, like I said, doesn't tuck his chin. Sometimes his defense is very vulnerable, especially later in fights. His defense is not that good. And also, he's always had trouble against opponents that are going to throw back at him. Alfredo Angulo is an opponent that's going to throw back at him. He's going to return his punches. And as he returns his punches, expect those punches to have an effect later in the fight, and Angulo goes in and goes for the kill late. So I'm going to go with Alfredo Angulo knockout, and I'll probably say around 8 or 9. So anyway, peeps, I'm out of here. That was the distance. Peace.